So yesterday the FNAF 2 movie came out and I went to go see it. Day of release, which I've never done before, and it was amazing. I loved it. I mean, obviously it had its flaws, but I think it might be one of the best movies I've seen this year. Throughout the whole movie, there were definitely more scares, so many more kills than the first movie, and overall, I just think it was so much better than the first one. There were so many implications to the lore, so much gore as well for only a 15. And just again, overall, so good. So within this video, there's going to be around 3 different segments, spoiler free, one with spoilers, and what I think will happen in the third movie, and a potential for more movies after this. So for anyone who hasn't seen the movie yet, I would highly recommend you go and watch it and come back to this video, or watch the spoiler-free segment and then go watch the movie and come back to this one. But let's just get straight into it, shall we? First off, within the movie, the animatronics, they were incredible. The wizards, the toys, they just looked fantastic. I really liked the design of the marionette, and it wasn't game accurate like all the other ones were. It looked sad, which was really good, and it could show the type of agony that Charlie was in when she was getting killed. I think that Jim Henson's Creature Shop, who worked on the first movie doing the animatronics as well, did amazing. All the designs looked fantastic, they were accurate, they didn't look fake, they did look real, which obviously they were. But you could tell that it was plastic, the toys were plastic, which I really like, because obviously in the game they are plastic, whereas FNAF 1, in the movie at least, they're made of felt and fabric, which just was fantastic. There are a few new characters as well, a few new faces, like McKenna Grace's character, I think her name's Lisa, and Freddie Carter's character, who is Michael, which their characters just open so many cans of worms for the movies franchise, and really hypes up the third and final movie for what could happen and how it could all end. There are obviously some flaws to this movie. One of them was the ending was a little bit confusing, but I'll get more into that in the spoilers. Like, if you're a true FNAF fan, give it some thought, you'll probably start to understand it, and if you just get the premise of the movie. But I feel like no FNAF fans or people who didn't really get the movie probably wouldn't understand the ending. It took me a while to truly understand it to a degree where it makes sense to me. Obviously everyone's going to have all their own theories and what might happen and what they thought of the ending and all that stuff. But overall, I did love this movie, and I think everyone should go and give it a go. I know that on IMDb, there's a lot of really low reviews from critics. As the first one was, I feel like Scott made this for the fans. He didn't really care about the critics, and he's just trying to satisfy the fans who have waited so long to see these games in movie form. And honestly, I love it. There was also just a load of fan service in this movie, which was so good to see. A lot of humoric scenes, just general references to the fans and other franchises, but I will go into more depth of that in the spoilers section of this video. One thing I'm not too happy with that the movie did was the trailers. I feel like they showed a little bit too much, like with the puppet being able to possess people and control people. I feel like that was probably shown a bit too much, like with Lisa. I feel like they could have kept that hidden and saved that big reveal for the movie. But they definitely did keep a lot of important things out of the movie, which I'm so glad they did. Anyway, let's move on to the spoilers. This is where I advise anyone who hasn't yet watched the movie to go and watch it themselves first so they can get their own understanding of it. But if if you would really like to see some spoilers, then feel free to stick around and just enjoy. There are definitely some parts of this movie that took me like out of the movie and really shocked me, like the inclusion of Circus Baby in Vanessa's dream sequence, and obviously Springtrap in the post-credit scene if you stayed long enough for that. Throughout the movie there was so much lore. In my opinion, this is the best FNAF movie so far. So much better than the first one, because the story actually feels like it's flowing. You know, you got the animatronics in the pizzeria, Abby goes there, they get free, they hunt down Michael and all the parents that ignored Charlotte when she was being killed, and it just makes sense to me. Again, the ending did confuse me just a little bit, with Michael Schmidt like just turning his back on Vanessa. But again, after some thought, it does become a little bit clearer, because at the start of the movie, Abby was asking Michael about her friends, the animatronics, the originals. And Michael knew that they weren't there anymore and they had disappeared, and believed they'd moved on to the afterlife properly. But Abby didn't understand that and just got told by Michael that at some point he will fix them. Obviously, he couldn't. And Vanessa kind of pushed Michael to tell the truth to Abby, which is kind of hypocritical, because Vanessa didn't tell Michael about the first Freddys, the potentiality of other locations, or about her brother Michael. Another thing, I loved all of the fan service. The references to UCN voice lines where Charlie, you know, says to Vanessa, "I don't hate you, but you need to stay out of my way," and Toy Freddy's fat fingers, which Abby says after Freddy helps her with a science fair project, and the inclusion of Shadow Bonnie for like 3 frames of the movie in the office when Michael is trying to track down all the toys. When he shines his light, for a split second you can see Shadow Bonnie in the office. It's such a small detail, so much fan service to the movie, and it really just fits in. When Abby runs off to Freddy Fazbear's to find her friends and Michael finds her, and they hold the Freddy plushie and it goes ho 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 ho. I love the small nods that Scott constantly makes to the community, because it shows that he really, really does care about this community. Even after all of this time and all the waiting for any of the movies to come out, he still cares, which I love. Additionally, at the very start of the movie, in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, when it was open, the FNAF 2 location, you can see on some of the arcade machines some references to fan games like Five Nights at Candy's and Pop Goes Evergreen. Those are the only 2 I saw. I don't know if there are more. If there are more, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Throughout the whole movie, they explained so much stuff, which, as far as I know, was never confirmed in the games or the books, which I have never read, so if I am wrong, please correct me in the comments. But stuff like the perimeter lock in FNAF 2 was so nice, as it made sense, because it just explained why the animatronics couldn't leave Freddy's. Because I always thought, playing the games, you know, the animatronics want to leave, can't they just go through the door? But, you know, the perimeter lock, that explains it away, and I like it, because it makes sense. Freddy's is closed, they didn't want the animatronics getting out, these animatronics were meant to be free roaming. So it makes sense as to why they couldn't leave, because of the perimeter lock. There was also just so many parallels between Charlie in the games and Charlie in the movie, with her not blaming William. Because it's pretty clear that throughout the games, she does not hate William. She doesn't blame him, doesn't forgive him, but doesn't blame him for killing her. And it's kind of like that in the movie, where she doesn't blame William. She may hate him still, I can't tell. But she blames the people who had pushed her in that position. Like with the games, she was outside the building and then killed by William, but no one came to help her. In the movies, she saw William lure a kid into the back rooms, and she followed and tried to tell adults, and everyone just pushed her aside, so she went to do it herself, and she got killed for it. And everyone blamed her. You know, there are newspaper clippings that say, girl blamed for accident, and how Fazbear's just swept under the rug. It makes sense that she hates adults for this, doesn't target children other than Abby, and just really connects her character in the game and her character in the movie together, and it just makes so much sense. And the addition of Charlie being the main villain in this movie, you know, possessing people, trying to escape, trying to just kill everyone who had ever wronged her, it really was a fresh perspective, because in the games Charlie didn't really do much. She wasn't a villain, she was like a peaceful spirit. You know, after William died, she let go of her anger, she just kind of stayed in the background and just freed the other children, and then was captured by Lefty. But in the movies it's so different, because she is like the vengeful spirit. She hates parents for failing her, and she wants to target the parents that had failed her and kill them all. I love the fact that she can possess McKenna Grace's character Lisa, and that explains how she gets out, because she tortures Vanessa and gets the perimeter lock code off of Vanessa. The puppet being able to possess things as well really does make sense, because in the early days of FNAF 2, we didn't know how the animatronics moved. We knew they were dead kids, but in the second game, it was never confirmed at the start, at least I don't know if it is now, whether or not the toys were possessed. So everyone kind of thought that the marionette controlled the toy animatronics. And in this movie, she does. Again, I don't know if that's what it's like in the games. Honestly, I've not paid attention to much of the FNAF lore after Security Breach, because it just kind of got all over the place. I like it. I like the fact that she's able to control the toys, as it just makes sense. You know, she's the puppet. You know, during the daytime show, she would control the toys with the strings. It makes sense. This next segment might spark some controversy, but I like it, and it makes sense to me and what I believe could happen, and that's all I care about. So, moving on to the theories. Now, one of the main theories that I've taken away from this movie is that the FNAF 3 movie might not be just about FNAF 3. It might have FNAF 5, FNAF 6, and hell, even FNAF 4. I've got a few reasons for this. And one of the main ones is at the end, the animatronics come to Michael and Abby's house. That's a pretty traumatic event for an 11-year-old, which is confirmed to be Abby's age earlier on in the movie. Abby might have nightmares about the animatronics coming to her house and trying to kill her and being in her room and stuff, which perfectly aligns with FNAF 4, because the crying child had nightmares of the animatronics coming to him. So what if it's the same sort of story? And this could honestly work, because it's not the first time we've seen nightmare toy animatronics. Mainly Balloon Boy, Mangle, and the puppet. Because in the FNAF 4 Halloween edition, we get Nightmare Mangle, Nightmare Balloon Boy, and Nightmarion. So honestly, it could work. And seeing like the nightmare animatronics in live action would be so terrifying. Especially if Scott does make this the last movie, I feel like he should go all in and just throw as many animatronics in as he can to make it like the big bad finale. And if there is hints to FNAF 4, it would most likely be just a side plot, just to fill in the gaps of the story a bit, just to add some extra meat to the movie and make it longer, which is what fans want. Fans wanted the movie longer. Adds some more sauce to the movie, because an 11-year-old who loves animatronics would be terrified if those animatronics came to her house to try and kill her, which is what I believe could happen. It's not exactly like the crying child story, but it makes sense to me. It's traumatic, or it could be traumatic. I mean, you've got 3 nightmare animatronics, so that could be a potential thing, because Charlie directly infects Abby and plays with her mind and possesses her and probably manipulates her to try and kill Vanessa and Michael and whoever else. So I think at least Nightmarion would work, in my opinion. She didn't really have any interaction with Mangle or Balloon Boy in the movie, other than Mangle appearing at her house at the end. So maybe Nightmarion and maybe Nightmare Mangle. Definitely not Balloon Boy though, because Balloon Boy didn't have any interaction with her, as far as we know at least. Because You know, they wasn't seen together in any of the scenes. Michael ripped the head off of Balloon Boy. So I don't think Balloon Boy would be in the third one, other than maybe a Phantom animatronic if Scott goes in that direction, which I think would be really cool to have some of the Phantom animatronics in the building with William, which would be very good. I also said about FNAF 5 maybe being implemented into the movie. How I believe Scott could do this is through Michael Afton, Circus Baby, and maybe Ennard. Let me explain. In the movie, we know Charlie dies in 1982, and later learn at the birthday party that Charlie was at, there was a little girl called Vanessa, who was Charlie's best friend. This is the same Vanessa that would later be William's daughter, Vanessa Afton, the one we all know from the first two movies. Later in the movie, in a dream sequence where Vanessa tries to confront her past, similar to how Michael did with Garrett through the dream theory, she tells William that she's leaving, and William doesn't take too kindly to that and grabs a knife and tries to, I'm assuming, kill her, but I'm not 100% sure, just chases her. And, you know, as she's running through the hallway, she's changing to her childhood self, her cop self, really just playing with her emotions. She ends up hiding in William's office or workshop. There's a bunch of like blueprints for the FNAF animatronics and stuff. And she hides behind this rack, and this rack looks like it's just holding a bunch of fabric for the animatronics maybe, or curtains for the stages or something. I don't know, I can't tell. But behind that rack, Circus Baby is stood there, which timeline-wise, it does make sense because the Fun Times were built in the mid-80s, early 90s era, and Charlie dying in 1982 makes me believe that this flashback, or dream sequence even, might be mid to early 90s. There's been a few rumours circulating online that Circus Baby's eyes were green in this scene. Honestly, I cannot tell. They look blue, and they sometimes do look green. And if they are green, that doesn't really make any sense because, as far as we know, there are only two Afton children, Michael Afton and Vanessa Afton. But a theory I've heard is that Vanessa isn't an Afton, and potentially there was another Afton child, Elizabeth Afton, who William built Circus Baby for. Circus Baby killed her. Elizabeth possessed Circus Baby. William couldn't escape the grief, so he kidnapped Vanessa from a different family and manipulated her and tortured her into becoming Vanessa Afton. Basically just becoming his slave and his new daughter, replacing Elizabeth. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't put it past William, because we know before in the franchise he's tried to build his family back. You know, in the sister location bunker, he's there experimenting with Remnant and Fear to try and remake what happened to the crying child, to try and bring back his child, which makes sense for William, and I feel really fits his character, but I feel like it doesn't fit the movie. I feel like Vanessa being a kidnapped, missing child, basically reborn as an Afton, doesn't make too much sense to me. It just I don't know, it just kind of feels cheap in a way. It just feels like a really quick and easy way to kind of explain Circus Baby being in there. What I think it could be though, Circus Baby was obviously seen in the dream sequence back in sometime in the 80s or 90s. What if the events of FNAF 5 has already happened and Michael Afton isn't quite what he seems? What if Michael Afton is Ennard? You know, in the games, Michael Afton is killed by Ennard, uses a skin suit and allows the Fun Times to escape. What if it's the same sort of story here, where Ennard and the Fun Times use Michael as a skin suit, get out, and then just stay in Michael's body until he starts to rot a week or so later? Because within the movie, it's clear that Michael idolizes his father, which, similar to how Vanessa was presumably brought up through the little hints and bits we got from the first movie, where if he's around, she's powerless, she can't do anything. Maybe it's the same sort of story for Michael, where he has been so brainwashed and so manipulated, he just idolizes William. But what if this also comes from Ennard? You know, the manipulation, the murder, or wanting to murder at least, because he sets the toy animatronics after the Schmidts and Vanessa, because the toys don't attack Michael, which might mean that Charlie and Michael are working together. All of this helps up my FNAF 6 theory, where, assuming that the movie follows the game like Matthew Lillard has said before, well, the FNAF 3 part of the movie will end with a fire where William escapes. This could then lead to FNAF 6, as during the credits, there's a secret recording, if you stay long enough, where Henry talks to Michael about not being there anymore. But he also says about a secret device which can bring animatronics to the device. What if Michael goes to Henry's house, finds this device, opens up a new pizzeria, and lures all the animatronics back and set it ablaze? I think that could work, because at this point, Circus Baby would be around, Ennard/Molten Freddy would be around, Charlie/Lefty would be around, and William would be around still. And then maybe this could tie everything together and actually allow the FNAF movies to end without dragging it on to another 6 films. I feel like this would be a really good final story arc for Michael, Garrett, Abby, Vanessa, William and Michael Afton, Henry Emily, Charlotte Emily, all of them. I feel like this would be really, really good, as if Garrett has a suit, if he is an animatronic, maybe Garrett and Michael could finally reunite and kind of give Michael the closure he needed about Garrett and what really happened to him. I feel like it would fit. I feel like it would work. But that is just what I believe. I also believe that Cassidy might not be gone yet, because in the movie, Cassidy says to Michael, when we go, we cannot hold him down anymore, or I cannot hold him down anymore. We're going to heaven, which is what he says to Abby when Abby asks Cassidy where they're all going. There's a little smirk that Cassidy drops though, and Cassidy in the games and the books has always been known as the vengeful spirit. You know, the one who's never let Afton rest, the one who's always come back to haunt Afton. Whenever William's back, Cassidy comes back alongside him in some shape or form. What if, similar to the games, Cassidy doesn't leave? What if Cassidy comes back to the FNAF pizzeria, the final one, and stays while the fire happens, presumably killing all the animatronics, setting all their souls free? And what if Cassidy drags William down into hell? And that could be the end of the series. You know, I feel that makes sense. You know, it would tie all the loose ends together, bring back Cassidy, make him more like the game Cassidy, and maybe even, if Scott wants to go in this direction, Cassidy seems to know a lot about Garrett. What if Garrett is in Golden Freddy alongside Cassidy? And that's maybe why we've not seen Garrett. And what if that is why we've not seen Golden Freddy throughout this movie? We've seen Cassidy, we've seen Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, Foxy, we've seen their wizards, we've seen the toys. We didn't see Golden Freddy. And that's weird, because Golden Freddy, I feel, is one of the main characters of all of FNAF, you know, alongside William and maybe Michael. I reckon he's one of the main 3 animatronics of the entire franchise. So it felt wrong not seeing him, even just in the background. It felt weird. So what if there are 2 spirits in Golden Freddy? One is Garrett, one is Cassidy. In the FNAF 6 fire, Garrett could reunite with Michael, Garrett can then pass on, and Cassidy can stay behind and drag William down to hell. That's what I believe could happen if Scott goes that direction. Which, Scott, listen to me, buddy. That sounds like a good movie. I reckon you'd do it. It makes sense to me from a fan's point of view. I feel it would tie everything together, you know. It would work, it'd bring an end to many of the stories, many of the mysteries, and hey, maybe we could figure out the Crown Child's real name. Who knows, it could be Garrett in the games too, we don't know. Anyway, that is my full review of this movie. Again, I absolutely loved the movie. There were so many good things about it, and I can't wait to see how it all ends and what happens to William. The post-credit scene really hyped me up to see Springtrap in live action, and I cannot wait. So thank you so very, very much for watching, my friends, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.